Senator Joe Boncore, you can give a...
Thank you. Good to see everyone tonight on this beautiful night. We haven't got enough rain, so we're going to do more tonight. But I just want to thank John, the entire council, for having me out tonight, giving me the opportunity to, not only touch on some of the legislative priorities that I have going into this session, but to hear from you and hear what your priorities are, what you think we need at the state level and trickle down. I want to thank my colleagues I work with from the North End. They're great. I know Michael Benetti's here representing Lydia Edwards, and of course Maria's here representing Mayor Walsh. And Aaron's not here tonight, but I can tell you that it is Aaron's newest appointment. I don't want it to be lost on anyone in this room how important that position is and how important the budget process is. And if you just look at the House's budget this year and how much was actually delivered to the North End by way of earmarks, I mean, it's really going to pay dividends for a long time. So, if he's not, he should be making things, and I think he will, but if he's not, give him a break, because, that job is just so important and really all-inclusive of everything. So you should all be very proud to have your representative in this community be sitting in that chair. And as we work on the state budget this year, the House did it 2 weeks ago, $42 billion plus budget. The Senate will be taking up in the next week, and I will be prioritizing some local earmarks for the North End and the area around Boston, as well as covering some of my other districts. Last year, I was chair of the Housing Committee. We were able to deliver a $1.8 billion housing bond bill to invest in the production and preservation of affordable housing across this Commonwealth. So we're very proud of that, and doing our best to keep housing affordable in this city and throughout Metro Boston and beyond. There's a lot left I want to do in housing, mainly a housing production bill, and ensuring that we're meeting our goals and meeting really the population increases that we've seen. We've added about 280,000 new jobs to Massachusetts, and the majority of those being in Metro Boston. We've added more than like 350,000 people to those jobs, to the Commonwealth. The unfortunate situation we're in now is that we're not producing enough housing to keep up with that. So if you think about simple supply and demand economics, if there's more of a demand for housing and there's not enough of it being produced, the housing prices go up. And this neighborhood is really a microcosm of what's going on there. And the people want to come to Boston. They want to work in Boston. There's a lot of jobs in Boston, but we're not producing housing enough housing outside of Boston. The cost of housing in the city is going up. So I think it's incumbent upon communities outside of this city. I mean, it's funny to walk into a Boston area meeting and say we're not producing enough housing. But I want you to think about that in a global, statewide sense. We're certainly not producing enough housing. So we need to incentivize communities around Boston to do their part. Boston is doing its part. Of the multifamily housing zoned in the last 10 years in the Commonwealth, Boston and 4 other cities have zoned like 75% of that. So, the majority of the work is being done here to combat this issue. So, as a legislature, we're trying to move this forward and ensure that other communities, especially communities that benefit from public transit lines and public transit stops, are not down zoning, but they're up zoning. So, I've filed a pretty major piece of legislation to lower the voting requirements around zoning and create multifamily mandates along public transit areas. And we can talk more about that if anyone is interested, but I can see some people are glazing over at it. So I'll move on. This year I'm happy to say I'm the chair of the State's Transportation Committee, the Senate's Transportation Committee, dealing with public transit in this city and throughout the Commonwealth. And I can tell you it's a pretty ugly picture. Massachusetts is a Commonwealth that leads in so many things. We lead in education, K through 12, higher education, healthcare, job growth. Where so many states around the country are losing jobs, we're adding jobs and adding people. We lag way behind in transportation. Our public transit infrastructure rate is 42nd in the nation. Think about that. And all the stuff we do so well, we've failed to make key investment along public transit lines and public transit services. And we see that in what we see every day. I mean, Boston was just ranked the #1 city in the entire country for congestion. We have the worst congestion in the entire country. We have the 8th worst congestion in the entire world. I mean, and you think about countries like that have, 15 times our population, across this world. We rank 8th. So we need to do more. We're trying to do more and think about alternatives. I was just, Senate President Karen Spilker appointed me to chair a Senate working group around these issues to deal with congestion, to deal with key investments and new revenue sources for transportation, building into our future, getting away from a 20th century public transit system and bringing that system into the 21st century. It's going to require a lot. It's going to require us to look inward, really have a bias for action, and if we make a mistake, not be afraid to course correct as we go along. But the cost of doing nothing is what we're currently seeing. We can no longer have that. We need to start beginning to make investments, key investments, and thinking about our long-term strategy around public transit. So we're happy to keep that conversation alive. This is the beginning of the conversation with everyone here. I've also focused some legislation in areas that I'm familiar with. As most of you know, I was a public defender before joining the Senate, so I'm still working on some criminal justice reform that's been left over from last year, as well as healthcare and transparency in Medicaid and prescription prices. I know you have an election coming up on Saturday. Tonight's kind of your candidates night. I just do want to say congratulate and thank any of the candidates who are going to run to be on this council. Just taking that first step into doing service to your community and making the North End a better place, and I know you all have the best intentions, is really something that should be commended more and more. And then when you get up a little, if you ever run for anything else, you realize that no one commends you at all. But for now, I think this is really good. It's an important process that this neighborhood council goes through with each and every development, each and every license. And you're all saints for even trying to serve on it. So no matter who, if you're successful or not, the North End is a better place because you people have come forward and try to serve. So I know you have a lot to do tonight. So with that, I'll open it up to questions if that's all right, Mr. President. Yes.
Why is it that there doesn't seem to be a political appetite to make investments in infrastructure? It seems like since the Big Dig, which was cutting edge, many moons ago, the state hasn't done much. You look at the stories all over and over about Keolis, the MBTA running the system, not doing that great. Cubic's cashless system was supposed to be unveiled next year, after delayed by a year. It seems like nothing's ever getting better when it comes to, especially the MBTA. That winter a few years ago, where they talked about making huge promises and huge changes. Not much has happened. So I guess I'm wondering, on Beacon Hill, will there ever be that political appetite to really make a change and make the investment that's needed to make change?
I think you're right, and I think we're seeing as we look into this transportation issue is it's really a mess. You talked about the MBTA transit system. Our core system is at a $7.5 billion state of good repair deficit. So we need $7.5 billion invested in that system to get it to be safe, reliable, and efficient.
I think it was $5 billion a few winters ago. It just got worse.
Okay, so it's only gotten worse because we failed to make these investments and create revenue to invest back in it. I mean, now our roads and bridges are at a $5 billion state of good repair deficit. Our local roads, that like in the city of Boston and not state managed roads, that's about a $2 billion state of good repair deficit. So I guess the short answer to your question is, the time is now to take these votes, and really we need an infusion of cash. So that's a difficult thing to do. It's quite honestly that our legislators are on the ballot every 2 years, and tax votes are a very difficult vote to take. So I think in the past couple of years there's been some education going on and educating the public and rebuilding that trust with the MBTA. I think after the Big Dig and after the train broke down in 2013, right?
14, 15, that winter.
Whatever it was. Yeah. I mean, it was an awful winter. The public had, probably didn't trust, the state officials in the transit system after, that stuff. So I think we've had the time to, build the trust. I think, all revenue options have to be on the table in this session. All user fee options and tolling and things of that such. We need to talk about it because now I think, our constituents demand it, our constituents can see it and feel it, they failed in their pocketbooks. The traffic and congestion we sit in, costs this economy billions of dollars in the city of Boston alone. And it costs people in their own pocketbook, more than $3,000 a year is lost in just sitting in traffic and not being at work and not being home with your family. So it's really coming to a head, and that's what people are talking about. So I think the time is now, over this session to get something done. Thanks for the question.
Well, let's hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else in the audience, or? Victor?
Sure. Is it, back to transportation, or continuing transportation?
Yeah.
Is it too early to talk about what's being thought about to address the issues? I mean, specifically, another Green Line track, or connection between South Station and North Station. What should we be looking for ideas so that we can begin to think about them?
So if you think about the Green Line extension, that was a $4 billion project. If you think about, the North-South Rail Link or whatever that's going to come, that's about an $18 billion project. This is not billions of dollars, so, we're talking about. So we need to first thing, take a step back and really look at the revenue picture. And if we have enough, tax money going into this, and if not, what are we going to do about it? And the gas tax a few years ago, prior to me being in the legislature, the legislature took a vote to raise the gas tax to about 3 cents. And did not index it with the cost of inflation. And, we're really seeing that now. We're seeing that lack of investment. It probably should have been closer to 10 cents or 12 cents tied to inflation so we can go up, so we can continue to fund, what we need to do. Because if you don't fund it, it further decrepitates. That's the state of our infrastructure, currently. So, but, the gas tax isn't enough, because in years as cars become more electric and, we're less reliable on the internal combustion engine. We got to now make up that lack of revenue too, as we move towards electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles and such. So we need to look at other revenue streams and options to think about the state of good repair today and the state of good repair down the road.
Anyone else?
Can I answer your question?
Well, sort of. I was thinking more of the ideas
Yeah.
rather than the money. We all know that the money is necessary, but if and when some money is found, what direction would it go?
Yeah, it would go into. I think it would go into investing in public transit. We need to do more to get people out of their cars and onto public transit. We don't have the road space to deal with the amount of people in this Commonwealth or the amount of vehicles in this Commonwealth. So we need to incentivize people to get out of their cars and onto public transit. The only way we're going to do that is if public transit is safe and reliable and on time and efficient, right? So we need to ensure that that system, our core system, is a good system and a system that people want to ride. We're kind of seeing the reverse. Where in this comment, we just raised the price of the fare on the MBTA, and we've done nothing to raise the cost of getting in your car and driving somewhere. So it's really counterintuitive to a transit system that should want more people on public transit and less people in their car. So we really got to change the paradigm of how we think about transit in this Commonwealth.
In the meantime, you're battling Uber, right? Either taking the subway or jumping in an Uber. What's easier, what's more attractive?
We have 96,000 Uber rides a day in Boston. I represent the North End. I represent East Boston, where Logan Airport is. We're talking about 35 million Uber rides a year at the airport. Think about the added cars on our streets at the Multi-Summit Tunnel. While that's being redesigned and generated, we have an additional 30,000 Ubers a day, or not just Uber and Lyft, also in that traffic. Now we have direction finding apps like Waze that are taking people, to save a minute, they'll take people off of the highway and onto our neighborhood streets that don't have that aren't built for that. And our constituents in East Boston can't back out of their driveway because of the line of traffic there. And we're also competing with our local growth, as a city and, along the North Shore. So, there's a lot of, there's some things that are complicating things, even further. So I'd agree with that.
All right. Well, thank you for coming, especially at